This is my review of One Punch Man. Okay, so we finally get to see just what kind of problems the Hero Association is actually facing. And we also finally get to see the leader of the Monster Association and his lackey, King Orochi of the Monsters, and Guro, who is his associate and possibly co-founder? I don't know. But what happened was during the time of the martial arts tournament, about halfway through, the security staff actually gets reports that there are a bunch of monsters in the area, and Genos also gets a report and leaves the audience area to go deal with it and secure the perimeter. And for the most part, he does, with one exception that I'll get into in a minute. So, at the behest of Bakuzan, who is one of the strongest people there, they actually decide to postpone giving an alert and sending out the ABB and the alert and all that, and they do, and for the most part they don't really need to, since Genos for the most part is able to handle himself, except for one or two instances, which again I will get into. And Genos before he leaves does contemplate thinking about whether or not to contact Saitama and let him know what's going on, but decides against it so that our old pal Saitama can actually do what he set out to do, which was to learn martial arts. So Genos just kind of leaves and deals with the monsters on his own. Meanwhile, we find out that Zero might be able to give Saitama the fight he wanted and enable him to learn martial arts at long last. Because Zero is strong and very prideful in that strength, as we'll find out later in his fight against Snake, who is already having emotional doubts that Zero kind of reinforces with his little speech at the end. But anyway, while the martial arts tournament is going on, we also find out about Genos going on to fight, and we also find out what exactly happened with Fubuki and her fight against Do S, which I'll get into in a minute. So Genos is able to take out 4 of the 5 opponents with little effort, and one opponent, who is a cockroach that doesn't really get a name, a cockroach monster. He gives Genos a little bit of trouble and is able to deal some serious damage, but is ultimately trapped by a special adhesive that Genos had requested, but in doing so acknowledges the fact that speed is a bit of an issue for him when fighting an opponent, because it was designed to trap faster opponents, such as, say, Sonic or the cockroach monster. So clearly Genos realizes that speed is an issue and acknowledges that, but after he lays the glue trap, is easily able to defeat the cockroach monster. But then something else shows up that we don't get to see that instantly defeats Genos, and we don't really get to see what happens, but we can assume that it's an incredibly fast monster that was able to defeat him pretty effortlessly, especially considering the fact that he was kind of already injured from 2 of the fights prior, one of which against a face carver monster that was trying to add his face to his collection, but wound up losing because Genos baited him into attacking his skull, which is reinforced. So yeah, Genos is clearly not going to be okay, but we don't know exactly what happened to him. And meanwhile, Fubuki isn't doing too well against Do S because as Saitama predicted, her numbers did wind up coming back to bite her in the ass, and all of her followers have been manipulated by Do S into becoming her own personal army. But Fubuki, being Fubuki, decides that she's not going to fall to a monster who controls others while she hides behind them, and decides to actually try and fight back. And she does, because she is able to hold her own against Do S despite being mostly injured, and she is able to hold her own against her own crew. But then it's revealed that Fubuki actually does have a bit of an ace up her sleeve. Apparently the 2 sisters are able to sense when one is injured, and sure enough, about 5 minutes later, Tatsumaki shows up and just decimates the entire field and takes out all of her followers without killing them, and goes after Do-S, while at the same time pointing out that Fubuki really needs to stop surrounding herself with inferior followers, because she would be able to hold her own if she wasn't being held back by them all. A blunt point, but a valid one. So clearly Tatsumaki doesn't believe that her sister can really hold out on her own, because of the way that she says it implies that she doesn't really have a lot of faith in Fubuki because of how willingly she is to rely on her followers, but at the same time believes that if she allows herself, she can become a bit stronger, and then she wouldn't have to rely on Tatsumaki to save her all the time. And that is a major plot point of both their characters, something that will probably come up in a later episode, but I'm not entirely sure, because at this point I haven't really read the manga yet, so we'll see what happens with the rest of this episode, with the rest of the season and the rest of this episode. From what I know, I'm pretty sure it's going to result in a fight with Garo and Orochi at some point with Saitama. I don't know when that's going to happen, but hopefully by the end of the season. But we also find out that the Monster Association has succeeded in their goal of kidnapping the kid, and they've also apparently defeated Metal Bat and Metal Knight. We knew Metal Bat had been defeated, but Metal Knight, we didn't really see much of him, but apparently his mech was just kind of hanging from some chains on their wall. So, not actually Metal Knight, obviously, because Metal Knight is safe and sound in his little concrete bunker, wherever that is. So, but his knight was taken out. His drone was defeated. So clearly the Monster Association is more than capable of taking on S-Class heroes. And then we also hear Siru's speech, which I explained earlier. And he explains that, for the most part, survival of the fittest and all that, about how only the strong survive, and points out that even if Snake tries his best, he still won't be able to take on all of the monsters at once. So, clearly, he has a bit of a superiority complex, and believes that other strong people should also have a superiority complex and should be strong. And Snake does point out that reality has a bit set in a bit for him after his fight with some stronger opponents, and realizes that while he isn't the strongest, that isn't going to stop him from trying. So clearly this is a character development moment for Snake, who realizes that he may not be the strongest, but he's going to try his hardest to protect the people. So clearly Snake has a bit of a new perspective on what a hero should be. And has started to change for the better. And Siru seems like kind of an asshole a little bit. Don't get me wrong, a lot of people love him, and he seems like a nice guy on the surface, but he also seems like he only really appreciates people who are strong. And that can come back to bite you, because if you don't appreciate the little guys underneath you, then you're nothing. You might as well just give up, because being able to appreciate the people around you for who they are and what they can do, that's important to being able to grow as a person. So clearly Siru needs to learn pretty quickly that there's a problem. And then we also find out after the end credits roll that Orochi and Guro have sent somebody to go to the martial arts tournament, presumably the guy who took out Genos, and presumably a former martial artist. But it seems like they've sent another monster after the heroes and the fighters at the Super Fight tournament, and we'll see how that's going to come around to bite them, because they have Saitama there, so obviously they're going to be fine, but we'll see. But let's see. But I'm interested to see just what happens with the monster and the martial artists, because the martial artists are strong, don't get me wrong, but Saitama has proved otherwise, that they probably wouldn't do much against an opponent who has superhuman strength, presumably the new monster that they just sent out to deal with it. So we'll see what goes on here, and I'm looking forward to the next episode, because things have heated up quickly, because now without Genos, there's going to be a problem. And clearly, there's going to be some character development for Zero because he needs to learn that he needs to appreciate people for who they are and what they can do rather than just acknowledging someone as strong and moving on with his life. So clearly we're going to be seeing more of that, and we're definitely going to be seeing more of King Orochi and Giro Giro going forward because they're kind of the main antagonists of the Monster Association arc. So we're going to be seeing them a little bit more going forward. But for right now, if you guys have seen this episode of One Punch Man, what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out my Facebook and my Twitter in the description below, because I don't really post channel updates over here, and I mostly post channel updates over on my Facebook and Twitter. So definitely check out my Facebook and Twitter if you guys want to keep up to date with what's going on with the channel. And if you guys do indeed enjoy it and want to help me make more of it, then be sure to check out my Patreon. It's a couple bucks a month, and I do appreciate making content for you guys. A Patreon is the best way to do that, so be sure to check that out in the description as well. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!